Welcome along to my ultimate guide to Saccharum. So today we're going to talk about what a Saccharum is, how to make Saccharum from pretty much any ingredient, how to use them, and also some tips and tricks that I've learned along the way in making lots of different Saccharum. So without further ado, let's get started with the video. So first of all, what exactly is a Saccharum? So oleosaccharum loosely translates as oil sugar, and I think this name can be quite intimidating for a lot of people, quite off-putting, but actually the process is so simple. These syrups are really kind of powerful, bringing flavour and sweetness to your drinks, and a really good tool to have in your arsenal. So historically they'd be made with citrus fruits like lemon. You add the lemon peel to the sugar, usually in equal parts, and when you've left this for around about 12 hours, the magic happens. So all that dry sugar becomes this kind of oily syrup underneath here. You've essentially pulled a lot of the moisture content and the oils from the peels into the sugar, and you get this amazing sherbety-like kind of almost syrup, which is really, really delicious. So once we've done this, you add a little bit of moisture, which we'll talk about in a minute when I talk about how to make these, and you end up with the most amazing syrup. So this isn't limited to citrus fruits. You can pretty much apply this to anything with the moisture content, which we've done here. So I've made a watermelon Saccharum, cucumber Saccharum, banana peel, coffee Saccharum using leftover espresso pucks, the lemon peel Saccharum, orange peel Saccharum, Earl Grey tea Saccharum using leftover tea leaves, which is quite an interesting one, passion fruit Saccharum, mango Saccharum, pineapple peel and core Saccharum, and I'm going to stop saying Saccharum so much because I've just said it at least 10 times. But all of these bring really nice flavours to your cocktails and are more or less interchangeable, so you can add lots of different flavours to your cocktails. So if you know one cocktail recipe and that's the only one you know, now you know 10, you can add all these different flavours to your drinks and add really kind of interesting flavour profiles to them. So over the coming months and years, we're going to be using these a lot, so we're going to be referring back to this video a lot. Today I'm going to show you the easy template that I use to make all of them, and it's going to really inform the future videos on the channel. So this is a really foundational episode. So now I've talked about what a Saccharum is, I'm going to talk you through exactly what you need in order to make your own. So when it comes to making your Saccharum, you only need 3 things. First of all, you need your base ingredient, which is going to be the main flavour of your Saccharum. So as I've said, we've got all these interesting flavours, but these are just the starting point. Pretty much anything with a moisture content is going to work really nicely. So as well as these, you could use strawberry tops, you could use kiwis, maybe even the skins. All manner of different fruits and ingredients work really nicely, but this is a pretty good starting point as an example. Saccharums can be a really powerful zero waste tool as well. So a lot of these are using the kind of waste parts of the fruit. So we've got the pineapple core and peels here, rather than using the main flesh, which you can use in cocktails, in smoothies, as a snack, whatever. The same with the citrus peels. Usually people just juice the citrus fruit, leaving the skin on. But actually if you take this off first, you can pull all the flavour out the peels into your syrup, making a really delicious oleosaccharum, reducing waste. And espresso pucks, same thing. Banana peels as well still have a lot of flavour. Watermelon, I've put the kind of outer layer in as well. With the passion fruit, you can actually leave the shell in there as well, which brings a little bit more flavour. The pulp works really nicely, but just put the whole thing in there. And that's kind of a gist of the whole thing, trying to get as much flavour from the fruit as possible. Particularly when it comes to fruit, you want to make sure you wash them to make sure the outside peels of the fruits are nice and clean. And if it's a citrus fruit, try and choose an unwaxed variation, just to make sure you get all that oil kind of released into your Saccharum. Now you've chosen your base, we're going to need our second ingredient, which is going to be sugar. So you can use pretty much any sugar to make a Saccharum. Just bear in mind that the sugar you choose is going to have a big impact on the flavour of the Saccharum. And you might notice I've stopped saying oleosaccharum and started just saying Saccharum. A lot of these we're not pulling oils from the fruit, so oleo is basically the Saccharum style of making a syrup, and that's kind of relevant because, as I say, we're not pulling the oils. So for your Saccharums, particularly with your lighter base ingredients like cucumber, you might want to use a really light sugar, like a castor sugar. But if you're going with something with a little bit more depth of flavour, you might want your sugar to bring some flavour. So a golden castor has a little bit of that kind of richness, a little bit of a caramelly note. But you could go all the way through the spectrum, getting darker and darker, right through your muscovado sugars, your light and dark, even as far as a molasses, which is going to bring really dark, rich flavours to your Saccharum. But bear in mind, it will overpower a lot of these ingredients. So be mindful of the sugar, choose one that complements the base ingredient, either allowing it to shine or adding a complementary flavour. And then once you've combined your 2 ingredients together, we're going to need our third ingredient, which is going to be your liquid. So when it comes to making your Saccharum into essentially a syrup, rather than this kind of thick, slurry base, we're going to need to add some liquid to this. And again, you've got a few options here. You can just add water, which does work really well. But what I quite like to do often is to add a spirit as your liquid part of the drink. There's a couple of reasons for this. First of all, you can add flavor to your saccharum by complementing again what the base ingredient is. You can use a lighter spirit with our lighter ingredients, a darker spirit with our darker ingredients to add that kind of richer flavor. But what I'm going to do here, pretty much across the board, is just add vodka as my liquid element. And this has two benefits. Number one, it's very neutral, but number two, it'll extend the shelf life of your saccharum much further than you would with just water. So as with any ingredient, you want to watch out for the usual red flags, any fizziness, any mold, you want to get rid of it. But by adding vodka as your base ingredient, as your liquid form, it's going to give you a much longer shelf life. Keep it in the fridge. I tend to keep it for at least a week. Usually don't have any problems, but your mileage may vary. Be safe, enjoy your cocktails, but if you're not sure, it's probably best to get rid of it. However, what you can do is scale this recipe completely up and down. This kind of magic formula I'm going to give you works for pretty much every base ingredient. So now we've chosen our base ingredient, we've chosen our sugar, and we've chosen our liquid. The fourth ingredient, which is completely optional, is going to be an acid of some kind. So rather than being a syrup, this will be a much more balanced end result. Rather than subbing it in for a syrup, you can sub it in for your kind of sweet and sour elements in a cocktail. In order to do this, I'll talk you through exactly how in a minute, but again, you can choose different acids, citric, malic, lactic, tartaric, they all work, they just bring something different to the drink. So now we've talked about all of our base ingredients, I'm going to talk to you exactly how you can make your own Saccharums. And this is a really easy template. I pretty much follow the same template every time, so let's look at that now. So to make our Saccharums, I use pretty much the same base template every single time. And this is the magic recipe I almost always use with very slight tweaks if I need to. So first of all, you're gonna add 2 parts of your base ingredient, chop it up to give it a reasonable kind of surface area. If you had to add a whole pineapple into a jar, obviously it wouldn't work. So chop it up fairly small. The smaller you chop it, the quicker this process will happen. So things like our tea, like our espresso, work really quickly because they've got such fine surface area, like a high amount of surface area. Whereas things like banana peel, things like passion fruit take a little bit longer, just because they're a little bit bigger. So once we've done that, you've got your 2 parts of your base ingredient. You want to add the same amount, so 2 parts of your sugar base. Give these a really good mix together, either by shaking it or stirring it, because you want to really coat all of your base ingredient in sugar. And then all you do, put it to one side, leave it for 12 hours, and it'll work its magic. You can also use a muddler or a rolling pin if you don't have a muddler to kind of press the base ingredient into the sugar to really encourage the process along and make things a bit quicker. So if you can, give these a little shake in that 12 hours just to keep them really nicely mixed together. But after 12 hours, you'll end up with this really nice kind of syrupy base, which has pulled a lot of the moisture out of the ingredients. So this is our foundation. Once you've got this, which is 2 parts of your base ingredient, 2 parts of your sugar, we're gonna add 1 part of our liquid. So in this case, it's gonna be vodka. Once you've added your liquid, you wanna give it a really good shake together to fully dissolve the sugar. You might have to work a little bit harder if you use a cold spirit rather than a hot liquid, but give it enough time and it'll fully dissolve. Then you're gonna pass that through a sieve or a paper filter. So use a sieve if they're quite big pieces, use a paper filter if it's very fine, like your tea leaves or your espresso pucks, and you'll be left with this amazing Saccharum. So a little guide here is if your base ingredient's got quite a high moisture content, like watermelon or cucumber, you might wanna add a little bit less of your liquid just to get that same sweetness and flavor profile. Whereas if your base ingredient either holds on to water, like espresso pucks, or maybe the Earl Grey tea, you might want to add a little bit more of your liquid just to get that balance out. So one thing I didn't mention earlier is that these tea leaves have actually been used and brewed, and they're the leftover tea leaves. So they're pre-hydrated, they're going to bring a little bit of kind of that strong tea-like flavor, and it's a really delicious Saccharum. Obviously, if you use fresh tea leaves, they're very dry as it is. You're not going to get pretty much any yield from that. And the same with espresso pucks. A lot of people ask me, can I use grounds, essentially? And the answer is usually no, unfortunately, because they're quite dry. As I said before, if you want this to be more of a kind of balanced liquid, which replaces sweet and sour, all you do is take 2 parts and 2 parts again. So 2 parts of your base ingredient, 2 parts of sugar, and then divide, let's say the sugar weight, by 10, and add that much citric acid. So if we're adding 200 grams of your base ingredient, 200 grams of sugar, you want to divide that by 10 and add 20 grams of citric acid. If you're doing 100 grams of your base ingredient, 100 grams of sugar, divide that by 10, you're going to get 10 grams of your acid. So really simple maths, but this works out to be really nicely balanced. I call it a sour Saccharum, but it's actually more like a balanced Saccharum. Add the same process, add your water later, and you'll get really good results. So the only final detail here, which I know is very nerdy, Probably 99% kind of unnecessary for most people, but if you're like me, you like that 1%, is to measure the Brix of your syrup. But for the sake of this video, 2 parts to 2 parts to 1 part, that works so well, and that's my guide to Saccharums. So in the future, we're gonna use a lot of these in videos. Pretty much anytime you see a sugar syrup, you can sub these in. If you use the sour Saccharum, sub it in for your sweet and sour elements. Give this a try. I really do encourage you to do it, and I think you're gonna get great results. These are a really nice zero-waste approach to use your leftover ingredients, give you an amazing range of flavors to play with, so I look forward to hearing about your experiments. But if you don't have time for this, that's also completely fine. There are some amazing store-bought syrups available in the market. I always recommend Monin. Again, you can sub these in where you see a 2-to-1 sugar syrup, bring in lots of different flavors, but give these a go. I really enjoy this, and I think it's a really good tool to have in your arsenal. So make sure you subscribe where you can see more videos using all of these ingredients. There's gonna be more videos for you to watch here, and I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have any questions about Saccharum, put them in the comments below. If there's anything I've missed, I wanna hear about it, I can add that into the kind of pinned comment, and have fun. These are fun ingredients. So I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Cheers.